Well, it's 7 a.m. on January the 27th. It's a Monday morning. Good morning. Welcome to your perfect day start of the morning brief. I'm Kayode Kikilu here in Lagos.
And I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Welcome for joining us live. Thank you for being part of the show as always. 27 days, as Kayode has said. So, hey, we know why we reel those numbers for you. It's going to be a beautiful show and a beautiful day ahead. Thank you so much. I'm going to say it 3 times. And good morning.
I think it's good to hear some positive words. It's a good way to start the day. I don't play with my mornings, and I think a lot of people understand that your morning is very, very important.
Very crucial.
You hear, your mindset. Some say, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I'm like, just close your eyes, turn the other side, and wake up on the right side of the bed, because your morning literally sets the tone, not just for your day, actually, but for the week, depending on what day of the week it is. So when Jeffrey tells you thank you 3 times, it means that you are appreciated, you are loved, and go out there and do great stuff. What a weekend, Jeffrey.
Yeah, it's been quite a weekend. I've been in between a couple of things, from football to what's happening in the social space between Annie Dibia and Two-Face, to Chelsea's outing and Manchester United outing. So the politics in between of Obasanjo's return from United States. They're saying I'm still the speaker. So it's been so many things all at the same time, and I've heard people comment on the issue of Obasanjo's statement, by Section 92, subsection C of the Constitution that has to do with the removal of the speaker. Well, I don't know whether there has been any litigation to that effect that has the interpretation of the Supreme Court as to what that provision says. But if you look at that provision at the face value, the members of the House do not really need a reason to remove a speaker. All they need to just have a resolution, get the support of 2/3 majority. They don't even like your face and they say you're out, you're out. It's as simple as that. Maybe except it's better interpreted by the Supreme Court. But as far as it stands right now, that's all we know. And I know another lawyer said this yesterday as well. So because when it happened, Kayode, I went to the Constitution to look. Again, the first time it came to my attention that was a possibility was when the Speaker of the Cross River State House of Assembly, I don't know what was going on in Cross River State House of Assembly, somehow they removed the Speaker, and I was interviewing the people that moved the motion to the removal of the Speaker. And the guy told me, I said, look, whatever reason we're putting out is just out of quote-unquote courtesy, just so that there's it. But we don't really need any reason to remove a Speaker. So go check out your Constitution, because Obasanjo say it has to be done the right way. I don't know what it means by the right way anyway. But yeah, thank God they say he's a lawyer, so it's his words between them and his words and their words. And we're watching to see what will play out in the plenary in the coming days.
Certainly, politics is not for the faint-hearted, but more importantly, I think that politics should be done according to the laws, the provisions of the law. And as you said, by the way, we're talking about the Lagos State politics.
House of Assembly.
Right, so the impeached speaker returned from the United States and basically said, well, no, things were not done the right way after a majority in the Assembly had impeached him and a new speaker, Honorable Miranda, sworn in. So a lot of back and forth in Lagos, definitely. But what catches our attention this morning is a news that has been a long time in the making. Chief Afe Babalola versus Dele Farotimi. Now, this, of course, started last year. Some say before that, because the book was written, I imagine the book was being written by Dele Farotimi prior to that time. But when it came out, Chief Afe Babalola found a couple of statements in that book libelous, defamatory. So went to court, and you may remember that episode. But this morning, we can report to you, and this is coming straight from Ekiti State, that Chief Afe Babalola, senior advocate of Nigeria, has said that he'll be dropping all criminal charges against human rights lawyer Dele Farotimi. So that is what we can report to you this morning. And this came yesterday after the intervention of the Oni of Ife, Oba Adeyeye Ogunwusi, and other prominent traditional rulers in the country. It's quite interesting because that book titled Nigeria and Its Criminal Justice System was basically a bone of contention. Dele Farotimi was taken from Lagos to Ekiti State. He was kept in detention for a couple of days Lorenzo very weak. Eventually, he was released on bail, and we thought, well, this case will continue. But Jeffrey, looks like that case will not be continued going by these words.
We'll get to hear all the responses because I'm happy that there's some level of direction in terms of how this is resolved. And this is what traditional institutions are actually meant for. I'm seeing the statement where it said, I rejected an oil block and defended the EFCC law and also rejected ministerial nomination twice, wondering why anyone would just wake up and try to rubbish all he had labored for and all of that. So, I don't know. We're happy there's progress. Let's see how Farotimi will respond to this, because he wrote those things in his book and it's been published, which is the reason for the libelous defamation that was instituted in court, and it was the subject of adjudication. So we're happy there's progress, but let's just see how it plays out. I'm careful what I'm trying to say, so that we're waiting for Farotimi to respond to the elder statesman's response to the traditional rulers who had come to intervene as far as that case is concerned. Okay. So, what do we have for you today on the program, Coyote?
Jeffrey is like, just wait, okay? Manage your expectations, your excitement, and we'll see how it plays out. But let's get right into it. The weekend was not palatable, security-wise.
At all.
It was a mixed bag, we must say. Wins for the troops and losses. And naturally, one soldier, the life of a soldier, means a lot. So imagine that we had more than one. Over 20 soldiers killed. And that's where we're starting off this morning, as Nigeria's troops continue to take the fight to the terrorists. We look at the threat of ISWAP, another terrorist group, especially in Borno State, and the potential strategies to eliminate them once and for all. The Timbuktu Triangle proved very deadly for our troops, even though they recorded, gains.
Success.
Yes. I mean, 90 of the terrorists were killed, but we had 32 of ours killed as well. It's very sad.
It's a very sad development, and we thank them for their service. This is what we say, putting their lives on the line for all of us. It's not a joke, and that's why we must continue to support our troops to fight and give them all the welfare that is required to give them the right motivation. But we thank them for their service and their sacrifice, and this is the sacrifice we always talk about. But away from that, we will be talking about the aviation sector. In focus will be the safety of airplanes, especially international airlines. Remember what happened to that United Airlines and the return from somewhere around Cote d'Ivoire back to Nigeria, crash landing. We understand there were 3 sharp decent people were injured in the process. We'll dig deep to find out exactly what played out and the way forward as far as air travel and safety is concerned.
Thankfully, it was a quick emergency landing, and we didn't record any casualty. We didn't have a crash. That's something to be cheered about. But of course, we're digging deeper into those issues, and we're not keeping our eyes off the fight against corruption. It may seem to be a universal issue, right? In fact, it's a human issue, Jeffrey, they would say. Corruption is in the DNA of man. But we'll be going over to Kano State this morning, where we'll see how the State Public Complaints and Anti-Corruption Commission is tackling the issue of corruption.
And away from that, we will be one more again, just yet another week, shining the light on a few women. But before we shine the light on women in business, we'll be looking at that book in front of you. We call it the Morning Chapters. This book, My Grandfather's Inheritance, The Fox and the Raven, by Lani Lay. A tale of culture and mythology. What exactly is in this book? Who'll get to find out? I like the title.
Yeah.
My Grandfather's Inheritance sounds very African to me.
You know what they say, readers are leaders, and that's what we try to foster on the show. So that's a snapshot of what we have for you today. Be a part of the show. Head over to WhatsApp, or whether you want to talk about the loss of Nigerian soldiers, 22 of them in that operation in Timbuktu Triangle. Let us know what you think. If you want to talk about whatever, questions, videos, whatever's happening around you, you'll see the WhatsApp number on your screen any moment. That is our hand of fellowship to you. So be a part of the show this morning through that WhatsApp number right there.
All right, that WhatsApp number is messages and videos only, we must re-emphasize. But hey, guys, let's get straight to the paper to find out what the dailies are saying at the moment. So which of the dailies do we begin from? Let's begin with the Vanguard this time. The Vanguard the main story of the Vanguard. Remember that the ministers and the VP are all in Davos, in Switzerland for the IMF event meeting. FX spending on foreign. They're back, I'm sorry. Or on their way back. Some are still on their way back. FX spending on foreign education, health, defy Naira depreciation. Rises by 26% to $2.3 billion in 9 months. So you can see some of the things we're talking about as far as all of these issues of, what do you call it now? For FX volatility, if you will. It can go right, it can go left, depending on how you play with it and how you strengthen your own currency at the end of the day. So, and these are part of the most important, critical part of development when it comes to human capital development. Education and health are critical. Informing the mind, keeping the body healthy. So whatever is going on as far as FX spending on this is concerned, it's critical for us to look at it again and again.
It just means that Nigerians are still spending more for education outside the country and for health outside the country. And, you know, it defies the depreciation because you'd expect that, oh, now dollar is expensive to the Naira. So more people will shy away from the dollar and maybe just keep their spendings. But clearly, you should know that it's a global village. A lot of people earn in dollars these days, even though you're in Nigeria. So they don't think in Naira. They don't convert it to Naira for us. They just go for the dollar straight. And Jeffrey, I think we've said it time and again, how somehow Nigeria has a huge volume of dollars in Nigeria.
Yeah, I understand that the ones that we can track in the bank is about $30 billion. The ones in the bank, that is record. The ones in houses of people, we don't know. But the ones in the bank, according to the one of the appointees of government, says about 30 billion in the domiciliary account. So despite how high the dollar is to the Naira, people are still traveling for their education. You know, it slowed down at some point. So maybe there's a bit of stability, which is what we understand. We expect at best a luxury would be maybe strengthening. There's supposed to be some level of stability, so it's not supposed to be jumping all over the place this year. So in terms of strengthening, I'm not sure. Maybe at some point middle of the year or somewhere around this quarter, I don't know. But growth, what I wanted to say, growth is a bit of a tall order. But they also expect that growth will be there. But this shows that Nigerians can spend their money.
And afford it, right? And I want to juxtapose this with the front page of Business Day. So let's turn our attention to Business Day. So you see what the Vanguard reports about FX spending on foreign education and health, defying our depreciation. But look at the front page of Business Day. And this one talks about health. You see, Japa drains hospitals of specialist doctors. And from what we saw in Vanguard, some will say it's no-brainer. If Nigeria or Nigerians are investing more in that sense in foreign hospitals. So naturally, doctors from Nigeria would gravitate towards where there's better investment and when there's better pay, and that is outside the country. So it's some sort of a very interesting irony. I know a lot of people do not joke with their health for a number of reasons, but we can actually develop our health sector. I see a lot of people traveling to Turkey, India, even African countries, Jeffrey, just for a health care. When we tell you that we actually have the manpower, all we need to do here is to build the infrastructure. So sadly, this is what we have.
And people will always say, oh, people come back to Nigeria now to take medication or for their health care. That is because of the process abroad, where before you see a consultant, hey, that's a really a serious issue, and it can take you weeks and months to be able to see. But here you can see a consultant literally the same day,
and the drugs are cheaper.
Or 2 days, and the drugs are cheaper, and all of that. So we need to do something to reverse this. So on one hand, people are traveling for their medication. On the other hand, our doctors are leaving to
following the money
following the service, providing the service. Let's get to the Nigerian Tribune that says the second Abuja runway project, Opera Trails, contractors alert demand for 532 billion naira. Stakeholders ask NAS to unravel faces behind astronomical increase from 90 billion to 532 billion. This is a big allegation. I know there's contract variation, but this is really high. Perhaps is why the Honorable Minister has said we're not going to go through with this. But they need that. That runway is needed.
Yeah.
Whatever has to be done to get that runway going has to be done. But if this is how it increased from 90, in fact, to 532, because I have learned in this business that don't take things at face value. There could be politics involved in this. This could be the real issue as well. There could be trying to give the contract to somebody else. There's a lot of things that could be responsible for all of this. But it's not for us to speculate. So if we stick to what it is, if it goes from 90 billion to 532 billion, that is a lot of change.
More than times 5.
Wow. Is it the FX? Maybe. That's why you need to read the Nigerian Tribune page 3. So you find the details as to why this back and forth is there. So for those who don't know, there's supposed to be a second runway project. It was awarded a contract. When it lasts over time, there's variation to those contracts, which can affect the cost. But the cost moving from 90 to over 500.
This is not variation. Yeah. This is multiplication. I'm trying to look for the right term, because variation is still within, it's a percentage of the bigger sum, not the main sum now being a percentage of the variation, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. So in civil service, in the public sector, there are 2 ways corruption happens. One is procurement process.
Yeah.
Second is this variation. And literally a lot of people are involved in it, allegedly.
So you have to keep your eyes on that one. Nigerian Tribune reporting on the second Abuja runway project. That conversation is on. But let's move on now to this Nigeria. This Nigeria's focus, Jeffrey, is on local government autonomy. And this is something that we have been on for decades now. But the recent episode started last year. But take a look at this headline. Algon rejects 23% allocation to LGAs. Expect direct funds from January. Seeks constitutional amendment on joint allocation committee. So if you're wondering what is Algon, or why is Algon rejecting 23% allocation to LGAs, what does Algon want instead? Explainers right inside the pages of this Nigeria. But one thing is sure, Jeffrey, Supreme Court said one thing, but we're yet to see the implementation. So, and it's quite simple. Normally, the Supreme Court, or any court rules, and you are meant to obey. If you want to appeal, go ahead and appeal, but a judgment is a judgment. But it looks like it's different strokes for different folks. But now we're finding a way to negotiate. I mean, a court rules, and then people negotiate, and then we're here.
Look, the truth is not even the Supreme Court. The Constitution was very clear. The politicians, with the greatest sense of respect, led by the governors, have decided to run the local government however they deem fit.
Let's be fair, interpretation varies. People can interpret. That's why they went to the Supreme Court.
That's why I'm now saying that the Supreme Court now affirmed the position of the Constitution in a judgment, saying, give these people their money directly. Well, there was a time to do all of that, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, but it's taking longer than necessary. The CBN and the Ministry of Finance, they are the center of this to make it happen. So that's why Algon is saying, you see this new year, we're not going to take it. Because we're seeing what is playing out in Edo State, we're seeing what is playing in other states. So there is now political autonomy and there's fiscal autonomy. You don't know what is going on. But hey, the story is that they said no more. Give us our money directly. The provision in that constitution, we amend the constitution, that jack, remove it entirely. And you can see the picture of the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, during that World Economic Forum, with the President of the World Economic Forum right there in Davos, Switzerland. Okay, got it.
So there you have it. We'll see how that one plays out. Just one more quickly. Blueprint newspaper.
Okay.
Just very quickly. Let's take a look at what Blueprint says. Northern Coalition loads feet as troops kill 70 terrorists in Northeast. But the explainer, that's just in smaller print, says, but we lost 22 soldiers. So that is the downer this morning, really. That's according to the DHQ. But big success recorded. Sadly, it came at a price, a huge price.
Okay, those are the big headlines from the dailies that we could bring you right here on the program. But we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we're going to get to the very first conversation for the day, and that has to do with our security and our security apparatus. Join us again.
Starting with security, of course. The reports we got from Northeast Borno State over the weekend, mixed bag, really, mixed feelings. And I want to get right into it. It looks like we've seen a consistent, attention on Borno State. And this is something that was so 8 years, 10 years ago. So what exactly is playing out there right now? During the previous government, it was the Northwest. But it looks like we're back at the Northeast. We have joining us on the show this morning, defense and counterterrorism expert on Africa, David Otto, and Dr. Amian Okidiwe, MD, August I Limited, also security consultant. Gentlemen, good morning, and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
It's tough to really take this particular report that we just got from the DHQ. On the one hand, recorded success, over 70 terrorists killed. But more importantly is the fact that it came at a huge price. 22 of our soldiers killed. How do you handle this kind of story, this kind of news? Yes, the Timbuktu Triangle is a very deadly one. The military said, well, there were lots of planning, but this happened. And I'll begin with you, Mr. Alto. How do you handle this sorts? Because on the one hand, you want to maybe sort of celebrate over 70. That's a huge blow. But you look at the cost, 22 soldiers. Really, how do you internalize that, Mr. Alto?
I think, first of all, one has to, say that, we give our greatest sympathy and condolences to the men in uniform who have, been killed in the line of duty, but also, to wish a speedy recovery for those that, have been wounded. And I'm talking about not just this incident, but previous incidents where the military has lost personnel and, many have been wounded. The Nigerian army, but also regional forces, have been fighting Boko Haram, now ISWAP, in addition to that for more than 2 decades. I mean, for those who believe that, 2002 was the beginning of the insurgency. And during that period of time, there has been, offensive and defensive attacks, against the Nigerian military. But also the Nigerian military has also, done significantly well. I mean, in this particular instance, this attack in the Timbuktu Triangle, according to the DHQ, was an offensive attack that began sometime, I think, on the 16th of January. I mean, it was dubbed, Operation Desert Sanity 4, which was more or less a clearance operation, under the Operation Hardin Kai. And the Nigerian army, the aim of this, the mission was to clear a lot of the enclaves, that ISWAP has been hiding within the Timbuktu Triangle, a very complicated area. But what is very clear is that, during this kind of operations, you are likely to lose personnel. But the question is, how much casualty does the Nigerian army have to take? And again, it boils down to the fact that, I think the army at this point in time would be very keen to understand the intelligence that it got in terms of the locations and in terms of some of the patterns of Boko Haram and ISWAP. I mean, in this case, it's ISWAP. In the sense that, we know, and the Nigerian army knows, that the pattern has always been for them to plant booby traps, IEDs, use, suicide bombers, people bound improvised explosive devices, as they call them, but also use vehicle-bound improvised explosive devices, which is quite, critical for the military to, kind of sustain. And this, according to the DHQ, could have accounted, for the loss of a huge number of personnel. But I think the question here is going to be, what was the intelligence estimate in terms of, that particular operation? Did the army get it wrong? Was it worth the sacrifice in this instance? But the clear issue here is that, the Nigerian army continues to face the threat by Boko Haram and ISWAP groups, in the Northeast. And the Northeast has always been the epicenter, being very well known that this is where, the insurgency took off. But I think the good news is that, the army is quite relentless. And I have to say, without being supportive of, I'm not a spokesman for the Nigerian army, but I think Nigeria has been one of those countries amongst many others that has been able to combat a terrorist group like Boko Haram and ISWAP almost single-handedly. And I'm not saying or downplaying the role that the multinational joint task force plays. I mean, I'm talking about the likes of Niger, Chad, Cameroon, these are neighboring states, but also the role that other countries have done in supporting Nigeria. But on the battlefield, besides, few periods of time where other elements have been used to combat the insurgency, the Nigerian army has, basically been one of those countries that has single-handedly combated, a group that has regional, some kind of regional formation. Right. When I talk about regional, having, fighters from different countries coming to engage in Nigeria. But,
Ms. Otto,
critical time.
Quite a number of issues you've raised, really, and I'll just go to Dr. Ame. I know the Timbuktu Triangle is notorious, as has been said time and again. So you have the Timbuktu Triangle, you have Sambisa Forest as strongholds, and a few others, the Mandara Mountains as, the strongholds of Boko Haram. So this was definitely going to be a very tough one. Series of operations carried out in that area. But just as Mr. Otto was saying, you look at the cost, the price that this particular victory came at, and you begin to wonder, is there a way we could have maybe done things better moving forward now? Or this is just what it is, warfare. It doesn't come without the sacrifices. How do you internalize this, having served in the military yourself?
Okay, thank you very much. And I think it's a very sad day for all of us. In the veteran community, a lot of sad notes are flying left, right, and center. And there are dissenting voices as to what was done, what could have been done, and what should have been done. But I want to come from the area of the morale, because if you look at the number of people that were able to get into the military, and if you look at the number of people that were able to be recruited into the military that actually have interest, patriotic interest, then we'll now look at the number of soldiers that are abandoning their beats and dropping their uniform regularly. Now, we will now correlate this with the kind of treatment that those that were injured in any of the crisis situation get. Then you will now have to postulate it against the number of personnel that were lost. Now, if you look at the number of personnel that were lost and the triangle of disabilities. When I say triangle of disabilities, I'm talking about the inability of the military to really deploy itself because of some shortcomings, which we are going to be discussing. Now you will see that it is going to hit a deeper blow into our military beyond losing of 20 troops. And so many of us are doing some analysis, and we think that the government needs to sit down and take a brighter look.
Let me stay with you for a moment. You mentioned it in passing, but maybe it's time for us to go deeper. I would like you to speak to the capability of the terrorists themselves to take out 22 of our well-trained soldiers, whether it's by an ambush or by, firepower. We don't know the details. Maybe you have intel into that detail. What does this say?
It took, from information I got, the attack lasted over 2 hours, and if you look at the reliability on the Air Force cover, firepower, I think that there was a little review that needs to be done on that aspect. Now, if you look at the movement of such number of troops with personnel like armored personnel, tanks, and other wherewithal, bikes, and equipment moving from their enclave to the public view to the roads advancing towards the soldiers' position, you begin to think that we don't have covert eyes on those directions. We don't have covert eyes that will escalate a reaction from the Air Force or a kind of re-equipping and rebooting of the defense mechanism of the soldiers' location. So we are looking at the equipment that the soldiers have, what they could have activated beyond that. I was in the Army bomb squad. I was trained in Makurdi, and I know that we have anti-personnel and anti-tank mines. And I know that there are some routes that those bandits and terrorists will take to attack those soldiers that should have been placed on such defensive measures. So I also know that we have the Air Force to intervene, and we have other means to curtail such an attack. But I don't know what really happened.
Ms. Alto, maybe in responding to the same question I asked Mr. Amen on this one, in terms of the capability of the terrorists, given the fact that two of our soldiers had to pay the supreme price. As you respond to that, I want you to also juxtapose it with what our realities are and how we should approach this. Because when you're going for combat or executing anything in terms of project, you will know your strengths and your weaknesses. On governed spaces, we have a lot of them. Places like Timbuktu and, of course, Sambisa Forest are quite difficult. Issues of limited manpower, overstretching of these guys, of our military personnel. Issues of even our level of weaponry compared to some of the things we see when you compare it to other countries around the world. I want you to just some kind of an omnibus response to this question.
I think what has to be very clear is that, when you're talking about an insurgency, especially with the type that we see in the Northeast, between mainly the Nigerian military and Boko Haram in this instance, is that you're looking at two types of, attacks here or incidents here. I mean, one is, what usually you would call an offensive, attack by the Nigerian army, and one is a defensive. Defensive would mean that the Nigerian military would be based in a barrack or a barracks or on a front operation base, and they would be attacked by Boko Haram or ISWAP. But in this instance, we're talking about an offensive mission or operation that was planned or supposedly planned by the Nigerian military to launch, a surprise operation against ISWAP positions. And in this instance, the location was the Timbuktu Triangle. And they've also done that, in the Sambisa Forest, where they've done, clearance operations. So this was supposed to be one of those incidents where the Nigerian army would have gathered intelligence, understood the capabilities of the ISWAP units that it was going to attack. Perhaps, also understanding that, there would be booby traps, because this is ISWAP's trademark. It does have booby traps, has IEDs, landmines, plants, PBIEDs, suicide bombers, and all that. So this is something that the Nigerian military would have taken, some kind of information or intelligence about. So, if they then launch this operation, which again I have to emphasize was an offensive operation according to the DHQ. They were going after the terrorists, so they had everything planned. They should have had their air cover. They should, have had, forward surveillance missions. So everything was in the advantage, or supposedly, should have been in the advantage. So the fact that, they did encounter, these casualties that has been recorded, sadly, it's going to pose a very huge questions to the leadership of the Nigerian military in terms of, how is this going to impact on the morale of the soldiers, as my colleague just highlighted. Was there some kind of insufficient information in terms of what, was coming their way? But I think, for the fact that the Nigerian military has been combating Boko Haram and ISWAP for the past 2 decades, they should have known, they should know that, they have a certain pattern in terms of the way that they are. Boko Haram doesn't have the capabilities, in terms of numbers, but they do have the capabilities in terms of tactic. And this is one of the areas where I think, the army, may have faltered, in trying to understand, or perhaps, have some kind of pre-information in terms of, how, this was going to turn out. But it doesn't stop the military, just like in many other countries, from carrying out offensive on the basis that, there could be casualties. I mean, it's sadly, the pattern of you signing up, in any military. And I do understand my colleagues' concern regarding the high level of morale that could be impacted as a result. But in many countries, I'm talking about the UK, especially in the US, I mean, they have recorded a very high number of, men in uniform, dropping out as a result of welfare. So welfare is a general concern, for most militaries in the world. I mean, they never always have enough, and people always want more. But I think, what is critical is that, the army continues to launch these operations, but it must take into cognizance the fact that, they've got to balance between what the victory is. I mean, in this instance, they claimed that they killed 3 major commanders, one operations commander, one women's leader or something they call that, and also one brigadier commander, which is a good thing in terms of ending an insurgency. I mean, you decapitate the leaders. So we know there has been significant progress. I mean, Abubakar Shekau, who was the head of Boko Haram, killed. The group has, been encountering a lot of infighting. So many leaders have been killed. But the question now is, how does ISWAP end? Considering the fact that we're still experiencing a huge number of military personnel, not just the men who have been killed, but the amount of money that has been used by the Nigerian army to train these men and the loss that, will befall these families.
Let me take this back to Dr. Ohamian Okediebe, and looking at 2 reports. First, the DHQ talking about the operations now in the Timbuktu Triangle, and how sadly 22 soldiers were lost, killed in action, that statement says. But earlier on, there was also intelligence reports about an attack by the terrorists on Malam Fatori military base on Friday. That's this Friday, where 22 soldiers are said to have been killed as well in that attack by the terrorists on the Malam Fatori military base in Borno State, northeast Nigeria. And I wonder what you make of this. Is this something you've heard as well? Is this one and the same? But the DHQ statement specifically said that 22 killed in action, while the reports about the attack on Malam Fatori base, the military base, says that they were attacked at the base and 22 were reportedly killed. So have you heard anything about that? It sounds conflicting, really.
Okay, thank you very much. And I like the way the discussion is going. It's very balanced, and I appreciate you from the studio. Now, let me believe that we're talking about the Malam Fatori attack, because if you hear me, I was talking about from the area of defense and not the area of offense. And if you really look at the terrorist group per se, I usually tell my colleagues, I said, we have not given the appropriate hammer to this event. Because most times when we think we are winning, it is the internal quagmire and disagreement and disgruntlement within the terrorists, and they begin to kill themselves. There was breakouts, and so many of them break out, they become bandits. So many of them, the leadership fall out of favor, and they lose respect, and they are driven out. Sometimes they are killed. And when you see those things going on, the internal implosion, you see that the attacks on the Nigerian citizenry and the military reduce it, But if you just put into cognizance, let me take you to what is happening between the Hezbollah and all of that axis right now, with the Lebanon and all the crisis going on there. You will agree that certain leaders have eloped, and they may be playing active role in other countries where they hibernate. If you agree with me, there were killed, so many leaders were killed by Israel within the last few months, and a succession takes place immediately. So if you kill a leader, it does not mean that you decapacitate them. A new leader takes over because they have a hierarchy plan. But I'm looking at those that elope from those triangles and find themselves into all these active roles and bring renewed vigor into these lagabats that are waiting behind. So if it is an offensive, and we are not talking of the barrack that was attacked, then definitely we also didn't get it right, because in certain areas of an offensive, that means we have a lot of information, and we first of all route them from the back and make them run into helter-skelter and begin to pick them out with our ground troops. All these are officers, they're supposed to know this. But I agree with you that there is definitely a confusion right now trying to interpose a news over the other to give credibility. And I also agree to state here equivocally that our lines of operational directives, our document we use to run right now as a military is faulty. Thank you.
Let's take it to Ms. Alto. Ms. Alto, I want us to walk back beyond these attacks and these casualties being recorded. Apparently, this is a battle of attrition. It's who bleeds out and dies first. Of course, the supremacy of our country and the Nigerian state cannot give up on this battle. But what's this battle really, really all about? Extremism? Mineral exploitation? So that we contextualize and know how to move forward. This is 2025. It's been on for a long time.
I mean, you're right. I mean, it's been on for a long time. But also what is very critical about the battle, if you call it, or the war between the insurgency and the Nigerian government and the Nigerian people in general, not saying that insurgents are not Nigerians, but, in that context, it's not just about the battlefield. Today's war is more or less, a propaganda warfare. It is disinformation, misinformation. Some people would call it fake news, because the element of winning hearts and minds, by the insurgency, to use that to recruit, to use that to, sell its own part of the story. It's very critical, and this is why there is a confusion. Between whether this was an offensive, attack or a defensive attack. But, I believe the Nigerian army, because critically the army has not denied that it lost personnel. But what it is saying is that this was not, an offensive attack by Boko Haram against a defensive position by the Nigerian military. So they're saying that it's the other way around. So in that context, we have to, ignore the Malam Fatori incident as being part of the propaganda warfare. Again, it doesn't excuse the number of men and personnel. Of course, Nigerian army didn't deny that. And the question of what is this war about is one that has been lingering on since the emergence of Boko Haram. Again, for those who believe that, it did start in 2002 or thereabout. For the past 2 decades plus, the question is, what is the goal, of these groups? What is it that they want? And critically so, as time burns out, I've come to the reluctant conclusion that, we would, have to find a different strategy to end this battle or to end this war. Perhaps, in combination. I mean, in all, intents and purposes, you must be able to fight, but you must also be able to somehow, deploy soft solutions. Maybe that could be, part of negotiations. Maybe that could be part of, a peaceful agreement. But the big challenge that the Nigerian military faces, and that has been faced throughout the world, is that these groups are not ready to, to negotiate. I mean, they want a state of their own, and that's why they dupe themselves the so-called Islamic State of West Africa province. They want a province of their own. But I think, the critical point here is these groups, they need 3 elements. Right. They need money. They need a location to operate within, and they need people to recruit. And in addition to that, if I wanted to add 4, then I would say perhaps they need weapons. So the Nigerian military, has often given the impression, which sometimes I think, doesn't help them much,
right,
that, they are the only ones who can finish off Boko Haram. And this is not true. We've got to look at a whole society approach.
Certainly.
That includes, other elements. So my concern is that we're fighting a battle and, we're actually not deploying as much of the solution that is required, and in coordination and cooperation with other elements.
So just 1 minute to wind down, and I just want Dr. Amir to have the last words on this one. We had seen the battle move to the northwest during the previous administration, but it looks like it's coming back to the northeast. Is there any reason for that as we wind down?
Well, you agree with me that most times we are distracted. And when we get distracted, we give the opportunity for the non-state actors to penetrate other areas in the region. And if you will also agree with me that because of our political engagement, we have been unable to actually wield the judicial stick against all of these criminal elements. So when you see a spread like that to other areas, it is just to create a kind of distraction. And when that distraction is engaging the necessary agency, then the main strike takes place. We all know these things. So that is why I'm telling you that the military document we are using is having some back ends that need to be closed. Because if you really take us into other areas of Nigeria and start doing rickety attacks there and distraction, then the main problem exists where you need to put your eyes.
Well, we will stay on these issues, and we have to thank you so much. We've been speaking with Dr. Amir Roy Okidieve, who's the MD, August I Limited, security consultant, military veteran, as well as Mr. David Otto, defense and counterterrorism expert on Africa, and director for Geneva Center for Africa Security and Strategic Studies, GCAS. Gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
We'll take a moment now. When we return, we take to the skies. The incident reported last week involving United Airlines has caused some sort of ripple. So for one more time, we take a look at the aviation sector. That's in a moment. Stay with us.
All right, welcome back. Let's now talk about the incident that occurred just a few days ago involving United Airlines, Boeing 787, understand, a Dreamliner with 245 passengers, a couple of crew members who were on their way to DC in the United States around the Ivorian airspace had an incident and had to return back to Lagos. The people were also injured. We also understand there were 3 sharp descents. We're going to get to all of the details as to what played out. We're being joined in the program by Captain Ado Sanusi, Managing Director, Aero Contractors, and former CEO, Nigerian Airspace Management Agency. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
You know, we've heard all kinds of versions of this story. So where I would like you to start from is what you've heard played out with the United Airlines incident.
Yeah, well, what we're reading and what I saw on the social media suggests exactly what you said. There was some sharp descent, and then 3 of those such sharp descents, and then the pilots decided to turn back to base, which is Lagos, or rather to Lagos, where they started from. But you know, it's an ongoing investigation. We don't want to speculate what is happening or what has happened. But I believe weather might be ruled out of it because it has to return to Lagos. I mean, if weather was part of it, probably the pilot would have tried and avoid the weather, what we call clear air turbulence that caused such rapid descent or rapid climb, as the case may be. And then what comes to mind as a pilot, to me as a pilot, what comes to mind is a flight control problem, because that is the only thing that will make an airplane drop so abruptly from the level it's going or it's climbing. And then probably another occurrence occurred again. So that might be a flight control problem.
Was this unexpected? Is this a unique situation, or this is something that happened?
This is an incident. It's not something that is expected. But the takeaway is there are procedures, there are protocols that the pilots will follow when they see this, and I think that was followed. And I believe that's how we get it. And the aviation industry still remains the safest way to travel. So you can take it from now that all these emergencies have protocols and have ways to mitigate them. And when it happens, there are ways the pilots react to, which, of course, the pilots make the right decision to come back to Lagos. Unfortunately, we had some few injuries in the aircraft. But as you can see, the safety mechanism worked.
Interesting. I like how you posit that with air travel still being the safest. It's very interesting the way you situate it, rather. But you said it might be a problem with flight control. Again, not to preempt anything, but you know, these issues are either of three things or a mix of three things. One, the aircraft itself, aircraft maintenance, pre-flight, and all of that. Is it a manpower thing, maybe from the pilot end, or is it the air traffic control bit? You're not able to get communication easily and all of that. So when you say flight control, do you mean the aircraft itself? Do you mean maybe issues with the pilot or air traffic control? What do you mean? Because we need to be able to separate this. A lot of people hear the incident and they are saying, it's Nigeria's fault. you know.
No, I don't think we should start pointing fingers.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, it's an incident that has happened and the investigation going on. But from a pilot point of view, and from what I've seen in the social media, the videos that I've seen with all the stuff on the aisle of the airplane, meaning either the airplane has already reached its altitude, and then there is a sudden drop in the altitude, or the airplane is climbing to reach to its altitude, and then there is sudden loss of altitude. And
so that would be an aircraft issue?
It should be it is an aircraft issue.
Good.
It has nothing to do with the air traffic control. And I don't think the pilot will deliberately induce those sort of rapid descents, because that induces G-forces that causes people to start floating and then hitting their heads or injuring themselves, and then items start flying in the cabin, those items that are not really secured. So it must be, and bear in mind, the 737-800 is one of the most advanced airplanes in the world. It is highly computerized, and that's why they even call it the Dreamliner,
right?
Because it is way advanced than the aircrafts that have been flown around the world. So it's one of the most sophisticated airplanes in the world. And I keep thinking that it must be a flight control problem, maybe with the auto flight control system, where probably the autopilot had an issue and probably disengaged, and then there is this rapid descent. Again, it is purely speculative, no, without prejudice to what they are investigating. I'm just expressing my views as a pilot.
Yeah. Let's bring in Mr. Musa Nuhu, former Director General of Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Nuhu.
Thank you very much, and good morning. Thank you for having me here today.
All right, we're talking about 787-800 Dreamliner with these passengers. According to what Captain Ado Sanusi had said, clearly is a very powerful and a very sophisticated airline. In your view, we're hearing things like the technical problem, loss in pressure. What have you heard, and what is your, I don't want to use the word speculation, from your experience, what could be playing out here whilst we wait for outcome of investigation?
Okay, whenever you have an aircraft incident, there are all sort of reports, and all we can say is speculate. Nobody really knows what happened. The report we had was just, he had an emergency return to Lagos, and some people got injured in the process. So anything we see now, it's merely speculative. But as Captain Ado Sanusi rightly said, pilots are trained to handle all sorts of emergencies. We do go on refresher training every 6 months to review, update, and practice how to handle all sorts of emergencies. So I think we should avoid speculations. We should wait for the Nigerian Safety Board to do their proper investigation and tell us what happened. And usually, I expect them in a couple of days to come with a preliminary report, actually what they think happened. This aircraft happened. They had an emergency return. This is what they think happened. Then they do their proper investigations. Accident investigations or incident investigations do take time. Actually, there are cases that have taken several years to investigate. And sometimes an accident can happen several years after something was done to the aircraft, but nothing happened. Then it comes up and catch up with the aircraft. I can remember 747 that crashed in Japan some years ago. The investigation took several years, and they found out what caused the accident was a maintenance work, repairs that was done on the aircraft several years later.
Yeah.
And because of the pressurization and cycle of the aircraft, it finally caught up, and they had a blowout which blew the controls away, and the pilots didn't have any control of the aircraft, and they finally crashed into the mountains, killing everybody on board. So it's sometimes we think we know, but when the report comes out as something totally different, completely different from what appears to have been the cause of the accident or incident. The report we had on this, there were some serious injuries, and our prayers goes to the passengers and the crew who were injured, and we wish them quick and full recovery. But if ICAO and Starting defines an aircraft accident, any aircraft event that has serious injury, death, or substantial damage. So if there were serious injuries, as reported, and if confirmed, then this is normal an incident. By ICAO and Starting definition, this is an aircraft accident. And the right agency to deal with this is the Nigerian Safety Investigation Board, who have been doing a good job. And I trust them to handle this and come out with a very detailed report. And the whole idea of this detailed report is to see what is the root cause. What is the root cause? So that root cause could be several things. I could think of 1,001 things,
Indeed.
But no need to speculate. So that you deal with the root cause to avoid the reoccurrence of such accident in the near future.
So let's follow up. Right.
Go ahead.
All right. Let's follow up with the point you made about the injuries. So we'll come back to some of the other issues raised, but I want to talk about this since you brought it up. It's been said that right after the emergency landing, that it took quite some time for emergency respondents to arrive. So I think one of the passengers had said, well, while the incident mid-air jarred them, it was troubling, that the process of landing eventually and getting medical attention was so slow that was even worse than what they witnessed mid-air. And I don't know how much of information you have about our emergency response as it is now, but what is a standard procedure? I'll start with you, Mr. Nuhu, and come to Captain Sanusi. What is meant to be the standard procedure, and why did they have to go through that sort of experience before getting help?
Well, emergency response involves a lot of different agencies. It involves the air traffic control coordinating with the ground services, with the airport authorities to ensure that when there's an emergency, everything is ready and waiting. Once the aircraft lands, it safely stops. Evacuation of those who have injuries is done first. Usually have you practice this. There are drills that are supposed to be done yearly to handle different types of emergencies, so that when it occurs, the system is ready. The system is already primed to handle the situation. I can't make any definitive comment or judgment now because we don't have actual details of what happened. And I caution again, when incidents or accidents happen, we hear all kinds of information floating out there. We need to be circumspect, and we need to be careful.
Right.
We have the airport fire and rescue services who generally handle emergencies when aircraft land.
All right, Captain Sunsu, standard procedure, and I'm sure you've probably seen some of those comments saying, why did it take this long to get up?
I don't know how long it took,
Right.
but standard procedures is when there's an incident or when there's an accident, and the pilot or the airport authority sees that the accident had happened, or the pilot called for from the cockpit to the air traffic control, either on a Mayday, which is a distress call, or PAM medical, which means there's a medical condition on board. The standard procedure is to alert all agencies, as the former DG has said, and Captain Musanu. But most importantly is when a pilot reports an incident or he says Mayday, that is a distress call, the airport authority is supposed to coordinate the ambulance system, including the hospitals around the vicinity, including the roads leading to those hospitals. Because the moment the airplane lands, they want to ensure that the fire, of course, with the fire service, there is free access to the hospitals for the injured passengers. So that is the standard protocol, where not only in the airport, but even the roads leading to the airports are all cleared. Ambulance systems are all on alert.
So that may take some time.
Yes, everything must be there, ready, waiting to come back, to when the airplane lands, to see how they can rescue as many as possible.
No, Captain, the reason why we're asking, so two questions in one. At what point, from your experience, would the airports in Nigeria have gotten information of this incident? And what was the reason behind, I don't know how long it is from Ivory Coast to Nigeria, maybe 2 hours or so. If this is an emergency situation, why risk the lives of people down back to Nigeria, to Wadena, all the airports? You know, I can imagine myself being in that aircraft and remembering what happened in Korea and all of this happening. I've been in an aircraft where we're just moving. At some point in my mind, I'm like, Captain, rather than go back to where you're bringing us from, just look for a nearby airport, because if the fuel finishes, that's a layman's interpretation. This plane can just drop, and this is not going to be...
No, it's a valid point.
So
it's a valid point, but bear in mind, the pilot, the captain, has to make a decision regarding the incidents. There are what we call, must land instant? That means land as soon as possible, or land as soon as practicable. Those are the things that he has to make a decision on, depending on the incident. And the airport close by to him, will it suit the purpose that he is coming to land into? So those are all the decisions the pilots will make. Believe me, the pilot would never, we are trained never to leave a landing place or a possible landing place with a big emergency on our hand. So I don't think that kind of emergency would have allowed the pilot over Ivorian airspace to leave Abidjan, to leave Ghana, to leave Cotonou, and then to come back to Lagos with something so dangerous on board. I don't think the pilot would do that. And I believe he made that decision because he has gone through the checklist, because every emergency must have a checklist, and he must have gone through the checklist, and he must have again assessed the situation and sees that he can land safely when he gets back to Lagos, and probably he will get more help that he would like to have when he lands in Lagos.
Okay, we really hope that we find a way around this, get the true picture of what happened. And both of you have said that we should get a true picture, and more importantly, ensure this doesn't happen again, because a lot of people have enough, bad experiences they've seen in other climes, and I'm sure that they don't want to go through anything of such. But there's a particular incident making the rounds, and I want you to speak to it, both of you. And it's on the front page of some of the dailies, and it's about the variation for the Abuja runway. And I'm sure this is something both of you have seen. The variation, 700% variation. And a lot of people are thinking, is this peculiar to the aviation industry? Is this something that makes sense to the aviation industry experts? Maybe I'll start with Captain Nu and come to you, Captain Sanusi. This Abuja runway, first, how important is it? And when you see the variation, does it make sense to you as well?
Okay, thank you very much. Before I comment on the Abuja runway, I just want to make a comment on the accident we're talking about. The reason I say we should stop speculations, now we have been told the aircraft flew all the way from Ivory Coast back to Nigeria with emergency. Nobody knows that. There's no official report. And when things start going out there in the public, it creates a whole different narrative. Let's wait. Was he on his way to Abidjan and had a problem and he came back, as Captain Adus Sanusi said, pilot that train, he's gone through his drill, he's gone through his checklist, and he's decided to come back to Abuja. If he was really serious, he could have, there's so many airports. You can name 5, 6, 7, 8 airports between Abidjan and Nigeria. He will have landed there. So the speculation must stop, because speculation can spread false information in the public, creating untrue and negative perspective. On the Abuja runway, honestly, all I can say, second runway in Abuja is very, very important. Being the capital of Nigeria, with the seat of government here, if anything happens, Abuja is closed with a single runway, and we cannot afford to have that. We need to have 2 runways. And in addition to that, the traffic in Abuja is increasing. So for more efficient operations, we need to have 2 runways. The projection in the next couple of years, the traffic is going to be one of the biggest airport, one of the most traffic in Nigeria. And we need to plan ahead before we get there. And you have a chokehold. If flights are delayed unnecessary, and you don't even have adequate time to shut one runway for maintenance. So Abuja runway is very important. As for the contract part of it, I don't have any government. I don't have any comment. I don't know what the details of the contract are. We've not participated in the procurement process. So it's been handled by the Ministry and the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria. I think those are the appropriate agency to speak on the cost.
All right, Mr. Nu, let's bring it to Captain. Captain, your thoughts on
Captain,
it?
surprise us, Captain.
My thoughts are very clear. I mean, this is not the first time we're building a runway.
Right?
Yeah, and we are not the first country that is building a runway. Convert the money that the contractor is saying and convert it to dollars. Look at other countries. How much did they build the runway on? And if the contractor is overcharging Nigeria, blacklist him. It's very simple. I don't think we should be it should be on the pages of newspaper. We have built runways several times. We have over 22 airports in the country, for goodness sake. Why are we saying that a contractor has charged us more? We know these things. We have engineers. We have quantity surveyors. Guys, they can go and look at it and say, look, this is not what it is. Runway is not space shuttle. It's a simple thing that you build. So I don't know why we are even having a discussion on it. If the contractor has overcharged, look at it. Let professionals look at it and say it's overcharged. It's simple. Very, very simple. There is nothing complicated about a runway. It's a road that is about 3-4 kilometers and has a certain thickness. Yeah. That's all. So the civil engineers can do the costing. I don't think it's a big problem.
Because the National Assembly is making a big deal about it.
As Captain Musa said, it is important to have a second runway in Abuja because the traffic is building and it's a seat of government. And whenever there is any head of state's movement, ECOWAS meetings, all that, the runway gets closed and traffic gets really messed up coming into the airport. And especially the coming in from from Lagos and other places. And when there is VIP movement, it creates a bottleneck. So we need a second runway. There is a need for it. Even if the traffic does not permit for us, but we still need it because of VIP movement. Now, the contractor was given a contract. Yes, there was change in foreign exchange, dollar to naira, but that doesn't mean that we should close our eyes. We should just change the amount he's costing and change it to dollars and look at what Ethiopia built, what Senegal built, what all the other countries in Africa, not even to talk about outside Africa, and then compare it.
Okay, absolutely. So whatever it is for us to build our own way, we have to build our own way. Yeah, that's the truth. Captain Musa Nuhu, former Director General, Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, thank you so much for coming on the program. Also, Captain Ado Sanusi, Managing Director, Aero Contractors, and former CEO of Nigerian Airspace Management Agency. Gentlemen and captains, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. Just one last comment. You keep referring to me as a former DG. My tenure expires February 23rd, and February 24th, you can call me the former DG.
My sincere,
we'll slow down.
My sincere apologies on that.
Thank you. I see everybody refers to me as the former DG. I have not resigned. I have not been fired. My tenure ends February 23rd.
So let's say it again.
I have the title former DG on my forehead. Thank you.
So let's just say DG NCAA so that we'll contextualize it. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Captain, thank you as well. All right, I'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll shift gears to the next part of the conversation. Join us again.
Well, welcome back to the show. Let's talk about the fight against corruption. There's a lot of attention we pay to the EFCC, and rightly so. It's the leading agency as well as ICPC. But what is the role of state governments in all of this? We're turning our attention to Kano State and by extension other states. So if you don't stay in Kano, but you of course you stay in another state, this should also mean a lot to you. We have the chairman of the Kano State Public Complaints and Anti-Corruption Commission, Barrister Muhui Magaji, joining us live from our Kano studio. Good morning, Mr. Magaji. Welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning, Kayode.
The elephant in the room, naturally. A lot of people hear about the Kano State Public Complaints and Anti-Corruption Commission, and they think, what do you do? Because there is the EFCC, there is the ICPC, and I wonder, how do these agencies work together? Is this just an agent of the state government, so when the state government wants to go after corrupt people, it sends you, and then what happens to the EFCC? What if the EFCC says, well, we need to go after the same corrupt individuals as well? So how does this dynamic work in order to further the fight against corruption rather than hinder it?
Okay, good morning once again. First of all, it's important we understand that we are operating a federal system of government in Nigeria. And that federal system of government clearly defined or separate line of duties among the tiers of government. That is the federal and the state governments. And at the same time, we have, yes, agencies at national level, and equally we have at subnational level. So there are certain things that, even if you have them at the federal level, you certainly need them at the subnational and the state level. For instance, Section 15(5) of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria enjoins state to abolish all forms of corrupt practices. And in interpreting that provisions in AG Ondo Federation versus AG Federation, the Supreme Court upholds the need for the state to join in and fight in the fight against corruption, and that is when you see the proliferation of the anti-corruption agencies in the state. So we are not only here to do the bidding of the state government, as some people may misconstrue it, but we are here to fight corruption at subnational level governments, which is very, very key and important, because states are semi-component and at least independent component of government, that it's a regional government that form the national, the system of the federation come together to form the national government or Nigerian government, so to say. So the fight against corruption in Nigeria, subnational at sub-national level is very, very necessary, and is a missing link in the fight against corruption. And alhamdulillah, we have it in Kano. We have gone far in the fight against corruption,
right?
And it is because of our activities that rekindle other states to join suit. And I'm happy to tell you this, that we have many states that follow suit and create the agencies like this one.
All right. Your personality, your office has not been without its controversies. I know you just came back from the police detention recently. You've also had run-ins with previous governments. You have been one figure that has been quite controversial. Maybe you want to speak to the recent issue you had with the police. It's not the first time, we know. You've had a series of these issues. But what exactly is this about? And why has your person and that office been very controversial in Kano State?
Well, it's not controversial per se. How I understand it is corruption is fighting back. When you fight corruption, corruption obviously fights back. And anti-corruption fights fair, but corruption fights dirty. So that is why you see what is happening. To take you back, in 2021, it is July 5, 2021, I was just abruptly removed from the office, and I was asked to step down for 1 month so that investigation would be conducted. I was arrested, detained, and charged falsely, because it is after 2 years that we were realized the legal advice has been dispatched since October 2021 that ignored me, but nothing happened. They didn't listen to it. So also the recent activation of 3 different federal agencies against my person. So I quite agree with you that there are a lot of activities going around that is targeted toward my person. But fighting against corruption is not all about Muhi Magaji, especially at the subnational level. I happen to be in Hausa, that's what we said, the current Gwajin Defi. The current Gwajin Defi means I am the person, we can say that we are first setters anyway, because we are the one that started it. What is very, very necessary and fruitful. For instance, now, we were able to initiate investigation that culminated in criminal proceedings before various courts, high courts of Kano State, and various criminal magistrate courts, and which we are confident that at the end of the day we can prove that case beyond reasonable as.
No, my question, Mr. Magaji, is why were you arrested? Why were you detained this time around by the police? What specific? I'm sure they didn't just invite you for drinks. Why were you detained?
Okay, yes. It's equally in relation to my duty as the chairman of anti-corruption agents. We happened to find out that there was an investigation that we carried out, and we realized that about 4 billion naira funds of Kano State government has been siphoned through different entities by a public officer. We investigated that public officer. We seized the properties in accordance with the laid down procedures and the provision of the law. Section 40 of the Kano State Public Complaints and Anti-Corruption Commission provides that adequate provision, and we did it. And we were able to, after investigation, charge the matter to court. So after the arraignment and the bail of the accused, then he come with a series of tactics to be able to snatch away the exhibit of the crime, and that is not allowed in law. So we take we employed measures that entails removing the property from where it is to a different safe place so that it will not be tampered with till when the court decide on the matter. I think that is what ignited them. Initially, they filed a lot of actions before the various courts, including Federal High Court and State High Court. So when they cannot wait for the court processes and they know they cannot succeed in that case, they now activated the police and they come to arrest me. They came to my office, certainly. The officer was in my office and he asked me that he was asked from Abuja to come and arrest me. It was out of his own volition that he even decided to write a letter, just a letter to tell me that I must report to the Donald Police Headquarters in Kano right now. So when I asked him that, did they tell you that I'm a lawyer when you are coming to arrest me? He said yes. I said, okay, so can you tell me the offense that you people are accusing me? When he gave me the paper, I now saw abuse of power anyway. That is number one. Number two, they said mischief, and the number three, they said trespass. Okay, I now asked him, so abuse of power, I don't know, in my little knowledge of the law, I don't know when it becomes a crime, under any court that criminal courts or penal courts.
Yeah, just a moment.
But I don't know. But
if you can hear me, yeah, I know that you wanted to land on your thought. Maybe you land on it, but I wanted to throw in a bit of a question because of time. And that has to do with what are some of the big cases you're dealing with in Kano? That's on one hand. And the second hand is, how fair is the commission to all parties this time? Because most of the time when commissions or agencies are being run by governments of the state, people feel that it's tilted towards enemies of that particular government. That is the speculation. So I want you to speak to that.
Okay, imagine, like you asked me about how many cases that we have. I cannot give you of it, but I know there are high-profile cases that involve both incumbent arrangement, that is the incumbent government, because we're able to investigate series of cases that relate to the current government. And the recent case, which I can tell you, is the issue of Noble Med that we have concluded. We have issued our investigation. We are waiting for legal advice to come out. And secondly, we equally have 57.3 billion that is even before the court now. We have this one that is that I'm talking about, which we were able to seize properties worth 2 billion naira, trace about 700 million naira in account. This is not watch hunting. This is factual evidence. And when you tell me that the issue of recently, based on our recommendation, I have seen series of adjustment by the government. And we were able to investigate and process a lot of directors. Even a commissioner was invited by this commission recently, a commissioner of higher education. He was in the commission and it was reported. So I don't think we are after anybody. But just ask yourself now, we as an anti-corruption agency, the creation of law that is fully backed by the statute. And now, as the chairman, not because of my action, personal action, because of what the commission is doing, an agency from the federal government, so to say, because they come from Abuja. When they come from Abuja, they are here in Kano. So if imagine yourself that had it been the Kano State government solely rely on the police to implement this law, what do you think will happen? Because we are able to seize property.
Just a moment. So I didn't say mention all the cases. Who are this particular case you're talking about is still an allegation, by the way. You've done your investigation. It's still going to be a subject, or it's still a subject of adjudication. Who are these persons you're talking about?
Yes. Okay. When you say if we are to, that's why I am trying to avoid mentioning names. But if it's an allegation, number one, we have investigated trace money from to Beirut change operators that was seized, that was from the government corpus. Like for instance, we have a 430 million naira that was removed under the pretense of chasing legal license treated prosecution. The case is before the court and is against one former managing director of Kano Drug Management Agency. I can't remember the name of the person, but the matter is before the court. And this is, we have compassionate statement of the Beirut change operators. And unfortunately, all these issues that are going to court, you see, same people that were investigating, were prosecuting, they will run away to Abuja, they will have their cover, and they will not appear before the court. But that do not change the fact that the matter is before the court, and we are doing all necessary legal processes to make sure that we bring them to before the court. We have this one that I told you against the former managing director of Kano Agricultural Supply Company, which we suspected that based on the concrete and cogent evidence that money has been appropriated to the company and it's been diverted to a personal account of Association of Compassionate Friends, which is a registered incorporated trustee that is not even allowed to carry out business, and a business name that he used in the name of his personal assistant, that is Limestone Processing Link. And all this money, they have been put in this entity, and they have transformed into various movable and immovable properties that the commission traced and now sees in accordance with the law. So this matter is equally before the court, and the suspect or the defendants in the case are trying hard to make sure that they compromise the investigation and the prosecution. And at the same time, we have this. I can hear you.
You can land on that thought. At the same time, you have...
Okay. Okay, this the same one that I told you about 57.4 billion is a local government fund that has been around tipping. They will send money to local governments, they will carry them in cash, they will put them in an employee account, and that employee will change them into cash. So ask if at all we will just overlook all these things under the pretext that we are going against individuals, then certainly the whole concept of the fight against corruption is just a mirage and is a myth. Otherwise, this is what is necessary for us to progress as a nation. And I think the Kano State Anti-Corruption Commission has done well, and we have fared very well, and the Kano people are testimony to that.
Well, Mr. Magaji, you are scoring yourself. You wrote the exam and then you are marking the scripts. Naturally, you give yourself 100%. But
sometimes you have to blow your trumpet because
but it's okay.
The people are the people you are not in Kano, you might not know.
Well, the people are the ultimate judge, but that's understandable. But the question is also this: a lot of people have said your activities are geared towards witch hunting the former governor, the APC national chairman, and some have said, I think you referenced the fact that your recent detention was probably linked to him or the previous administration. So are you still on his heels? Are you still going after the former governor, the APC national chairman right now? Or these recent events have made you soft pedal, say, you know what, let's let bygones be bygones and look to other things? Are you still going after Mr. Ganduje?
I'm not going after anybody. We are just doing our job. You see, as I told you, when I say 15th July 2021, that is when former governor was in power. Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje was the one that appointed me in 2015, and he appointed me.
And also removed you.
How much he has... Yes, you said?
And also removed you. Is the one that also removed you.
Yes, so that is when we come to the answer of your question.
Right.
You ask yourself, interrogate yourself, why will he choose to remove me?
So yes or no, are you still prosecuting?
It's not unconnected.
Are you still prosecuting cases linked to him?
Investigation process.
Right.
You said?
Are you still prosecuting cases linked to him? Is what I'm trying to say. Or you're
yes, we are prosecuting him in person. Right. We have, in fact, we have started this investigation since 2001. I was made to be edged out of the office, and I passed through series of tribulations, including arrest, detention, and personal assault and humiliation. And when I come back, it's not that Engineer Abba Kabir Yusuf just asked me to come back. It is the National Industrial Court that make a decree and that make an order for me to be reinstated, and he supported and he respected that order. So now when we come back, we continue from where we stopped. So we are not watch hunting anybody, but what I'm telling you is that we have a case like this 57.4 billion case that is before the court is against the former governor.
Mr. Magaji,
the case against the former governor.
We have to anchor now.
Started.
Pardon me, you're proven to be a very dogged person. I mean, I will give that to you. And this is a conversation we'll follow naturally. We wish you the very best, more importantly, the people of Kano State the best. We've been speaking with the chairman of the Kano State Public Complaints and Anti-Corruption Commission, Barrister Muhoyi Magaji, who's been speaking to us about his work in office and some of his run-ins with the police and other politically exposed persons. Thank you for your time once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well, we'll take a moment now, a breather, well-needed one. And when we return, we have some amazing women joining us on the show. You don't want to miss this conversation, so stay with us.
Let's meet two women in business for the week. Kofor Awoyera, founder, Dark Age Empire Limited, as well as Temitayo Akinola, founder and creative director, Firoti Designs. Okay, I wanted to be sure I pronounce that correctly. You know all these fancy names and beautiful names of this. Thank you, and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Okay, so let's begin with you, Ms. Akinola, on what you do, and then I'll come to her, and then we'll contextualize your craft and the vocational things you put out and your advocacy.
Okay. So I run a leather craft business. that produces handmade unisex fashion accessories, shoes, belts, jewelries, all handmade from scratch here in Lagos, Nigeria. And I am also the co-founder of an NGO, the Antonia Foundation. So what we do is that we reach out to people in underserved communities that need skill acquisition. So I'm a strong believer of vocational rehabilitation, and I believe that a lot of problems can be solved when people are hands-on, especially in the area of skill acquisition. So that's my focus.
That's quite interesting. Let's come to you.
Okay, so I'm the founder of Dakag Empire Limited.
I like the way you pronounce it, Dakag. Sounded like Dark Age.
Exactly. So we're actually an agro-processing company that produces 100% naturally and locally cultivated raw herbs and spice. And actually, why we do all of this is to actually align with SDG goals 2, 3, and 12. So we have our products, we have spices, we have food products, and we also have catering service. So that's basically what we do. And I'm presently the president of Dakag Care Initiative. So as someone with BSc in Food Science and Technology, not only am I'm actually doing a business in my line, I'm also having, I also have an NGO that deals with health, well-being, and also nutrition.
So finally we found someone that read it and is doing it in Nigeria. Before a doctor become an engineer become a banker.
I know.
Yeah, a friend of mine is an engineer, marine engineer, but he's a top banker, an investment banker right now.
There's marine money in banking. Yeah, it's quite interesting seeing where you operate in the value chain. So you operate in animal, sector of the the large agric sector, but you deal with leather, the skins, hides, and the rest. It's about plants. I imagine agricultural produce,
exactly.
But it's plants. It's beautiful how there's so much value. I mean, some deal in cattle, some deal in just basically transporting them, but you deal in leather. I am interested in how you link your business to the social or the NGO bit of it. So there is your business that makes money, and there's also you trying to empower, people. So how does that really work? Is that something that also fuels your business? So once you get people that are skilled, maybe you're trying to empower people, and you see this one is skilled, you bring the person into your business and you sort of empower them continuously. I'm trying to look at how that is linked, because both of you seem to have that common thread.
Okay. So my going into business in the first place was not something I planned. I wanted to go to school, finish, and then do my master's, PhD. I like to read a lot.
Right.
But, okay, the social stuff saying Nigeria happened. I'll try not to say that, but 5 years post-university, my results were still hanging in school. My project supervisor, a whole lot of things, and I had to stay at home for 5 years before going for my NYSC. So that period, and because I was special needs, even going to university was a miracle. It was not supposed to happen because of my health challenges at the time. So that was when I began to think that, okay, we should have an inclusion aspect to everything. And I cannot wait, because I couldn't get a job at the time. So I would have just sat at home brooding and feeling bad about everything that was going on. But I decided to learn handicraft, and I won't say I woke up one morning and said, okay, you know what, I want to become a shoemaker. No, I just started with things I had at home. I started learning on YouTube actually, because I couldn't even afford a proper training as at that time. So it was even the NGO that came first for me, because of my own personal story. I felt the need to help people, focusing on people at the bottom of the supply chain. So what we do now is, because I train in and out of Lagos, so some of the people who have passed through our tutelage, we like to use them to encourage other people who are doing well in this field now, to encourage other people about what we do. So I believe that every thriving business should have a CSR arm, no matter how little, and just start with your community. and that is what we do. And I am even focusing on teenagers a lot now, because I feel like if that foundation is balanced, we won't have to start repairing broken men.
Amazing. I think your story is phenomenal. I'm tempted to ask you to call out your school.
Yeah, I was almost asking, are you planning to institute a lawsuit against the person?
5 years.
Yeah, 5
that
years.
Is diabolical.
I know.
That's almost like village people kind of thing.
Exactly.
But it's beautiful how you turned that negative situation around, and it's who you are right now, what has made you. By the way, I love your outfit.
Thank
Maybe
you.
we'll talk about that after the show. But let me come to your story as well. You also have a similar thing. You have the business part, and then you have an NGO part. I love to hear that, because like people want to give back. But tell us your story. Was it 5 years or 6 years that your school would tell you?
Okay, so my field, food science and technology, is actually 5 years. So while in school, I've always been the business type.
Right.
So I started with makeup. So from being a makeup artist and a product distributor for a brand, I went into making beads. From there, I started making shoes and bags.
While you were in school?
While I was in school. Because of the kind of university I went to, so we used to have summer breaks. So our summer breaks is always very long, like 3-4 months. So I don't like to stay at home, like just doing nothing. So I used to learn stuff.
Private university?
Yes.
The way private universities talk about their school is quite different. Call it summer break. We just call it long holiday or ASU strike. Go on.
So all those periods, I actually used my time to, learn more things. I literally can do any business. If I decide not to do food today, I can actually take another business and start tomorrow. So from there, I think in my 300 level, I started catering for people. And that was my cousin's idea. She was like, oh, you know how to mix different things together. Why don't you just cater for my birthday party? Which I did. So after university, I was like, okay, what should I do out of all the things I've learned? So I went for NYSC, right? I did so many certification, health safety courses. So I was learning and I kept learning. But one thing that I knew that I must go back to was food.
And they didn't withhold your certificate.
Exactly.
You didn't mention that
They didn't withhold it. So I actually went back, and there was actually a program by the UK AIDS, and they were actually teaching and training people about food, different sectors. I was like, let me use my BSc certificate now, since I'm also in the line. So I started learning, I did my research, I went back to uni to see how people actually formulate some products. So I started creating my own recipe for my spices. So that's how the spices business started. It was just like, I think last year, I added other food products to it. So along the line, I've always been a giver, which is the truth. So I was like, okay, so if I'm a giver, why don't I just incorporate it under something that is mine to actually do it directly? So that's how we now created Dakar Care Initiative. So normal me, before the NGO, I used to give people in my community things. If they come to meet me or they don't come, I will share rice, I will share gari, normal things that people should do. So I was like, okay, if I do it under my own personal name, it will not look strong. But if I create a brand that is standing on its own, it will make more sense to people. So I created the initiative. And from there, we've been able to, give awareness about health, well-being, and nutrition. So this year, we're actually going to a school that we're actually going to cater for their bags. These are schools that actually...
It's a good move. Sorry, not trying to cut you, because there's a lot to talk about. Why I'm trying to come in is because... I grew up in the South, and living in Lagos, one of the things I found, I'm sorry to all our Lagos people, which is why you report at me. The quality of food we have in Lagos is very concerning. I mean the organic food we have in Lagos. So if you haven't lived outside Lagos, you may not really appreciate what I'm saying. So many, you want to buy crayfish, I wanted to buy some on the island one day, you touch the crayfish, like it's painted, literally. Yeah, they know exactly what I'm talking about. The fruit is forced. The banana is not. What can we do to make Lagos people eat organic food? Because a lot of Lagosians think they're eating organic food. I'm sorry, they are not. Am I lying?
You're not lying. That's the truth.
So what do we do?
It's actually very sad, because I've actually realized that a lot of people, let me say Lagos, are actually doing things that they are not even, they are very bad. For instance, I went to the market one day. I went to buy I think it was egusi. So normal me, I will have blended it in the market. I don't know what happened to me that day. I was like, why don't I just go and blend it at home? So I carried it. If you see the amount of debt that was actually in this egusi, and this is something that they were actually milling in front of me to sell to people. And you know, they were milling it. You know, people, if I ask you now, you might not even know you are eating the egusi in your house, which is the truth. But I saw it, I was like, wait, so that means I've actually been eating nonsense. That was the like for me, I was just like, I just fought.
So how do we solve that problem?
Now,
some foods are good,
exactly.
Some are not.
Yeah. So for me, it's actually, you have to get a right plug in getting your food products. That's what I can say. You cannot do all. You cannot know all in the aspect of food. But there are some plugs out there. For instance, someone like me that deals with spices. We are 100% natural. We don't add anything. Because how will I add something and I'm actually preaching, oh, please don't be nutritional conscious. I'm going to be saying otherwise of what I'm preaching. So I preach and I also teach what I'm actually doing and using.
Amazing. Thank you for whetting our appetite. Now I'm hungry all of a sudden. We're going to talk about egusi. I don't know. We'll find a way around. Okay. I'm also curious about your process. Right? I imagine this conversation. You're looking at our shoes. You're looking at this and like, I should make something like this. That was the first thing, right?
I look at when I see people.
So what first? You talk about how lucrative this is because it's handmade, and I know handmade is no joke. It's not like you mass produce and you can put a little margin on it. So speak to us about your process. How long does it take to make the shoes? How do you get your raw materials? And how much demand do you get? And I think all of that will add to the lucrative bit of it.
Okay, so my brand has the ready-to-wear and the bespoke. So for the ready-to-wear, I wouldn't say we mass produce as such because I've not started doing 5,000 units per month, but that's the goal.
Wow.
Yes.
What do you do right now per month?
I still do between 100 and 200.
Wow.
Yes. So I look forward to,
Certainly.
machinery, everything, and for the ready-to-wear. Then for the bespoke, we have the regular shoes that we make for people, and then we have the ones we make for people with special feet. So yeah, so those are like orthopedic shoes, amputees, and people who would usually tell you, oh, my shoe size is not in the market. Like no matter where I go, I never find my shoe size. I'll tell them, I have your size. Even if you weigh 50, I have your size. So those kind of people, we build even the sole and everything from scratch for them. So we do that via measurement. So we have customers who are not even in Nigeria. And then I'll just tell them, if you have a tape rule in your house, these are the areas I need you to measure. These are to take your foot measurements. And then once I get the accurate measurements, trust me, 98% of the time, it is usually a perfect fit.
How lucrative? What's the average price of a shoe and how much?
So our boots, ankle shoes like the one you have on, from 35,000. Then our slipper and sandals from 18,000. Yes.
That's not bad.
Okay, so as we begin to wind down, walk us through how you are overcoming the challenges of running a small business in this economy. I like to call it Tinubu's economy because, well, he's the president, so it's okay to say that because that's the whole idea. We are so proud that women are doing so much. Women do 4 businesses, 5 businesses. I know a woman who does like family 20-something. Let's not even go there.
Family like 3 businesses.
Family like 8 businesses on his own, depending on the number of children. So it's impeccable. So we're super proud of women and what you guys are doing. So how are you navigating? 30 seconds.
Okay, so for me, I would say that I'm actually a beneficiary of Tinubu's regime. So and that's because of my consistency and dedication to my work. Presently, I'm the National MSME of the Year, and that's not beans. Anybody in our sector, like in business now, and you're just scaling up, you actually need such a recognition. And for the presidency to actually recognize our brand, it means that we're doing something very good. So that's one thing I always say. So I would say anybody in business right now, you need to learn how to be consistent. You can never tell when the time is going to be yours. There's always a stage, but what are the people that are going to be on that stage? Is it going to be you? Is it going to be me? But you cannot get there unless you actually try.
So shout out to the president on your behalf.
Yes,
But you didn't get the presidency recognition.
No, not yet.
Not yet, right? So
in 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Okay, so I'm very big on grant applications and organizations like the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs, the U.S. Consulate in Nigeria initiative, like Flourish Africa, Jami Fem in Nigeria and Co. They have helped me to upskill my business through grants and entrepreneurship training. So yes, so that's where I get some of my business capital for that I used to set up. Yes.
Fantastic. We're going to continue to talk with women like you who are shy. That's why we dedicated a day like this to celebrate and spotlight women doing great things within their small spaces. Kofoworola Awoyira, the founder of Dakaj Empire Limited. Yeah, I said it this time correctly. Also, Temita Akinola, founder and creative director of Firoti Designs. Thank you both for coming on the program. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will take just a very quick break and we'll come back to tell you what you've been talking about on X. Join us again.
So let's get right into what is trending. What a weekend it was, Jeffrey. And we started off by talking about the impeached Speaker of the Lagos State Assembly, Mudashiru Obasa, who's now saying, well, nothing of such happened. But this is what he said, just in case you're wondering, where he reiterated or said that, well, he still remains Lagos Assembly Speaker, claiming that due process wasn't followed in his removal.
I'll say the Speaker until the right thing has been done. If you want to remove me in the proper way. I will not contest it. He who allege must do us. Let them prove. If I'm not carrying the members along, that is secondary. It's secondary. So we will discuss that, not now. At my own time, when everything has been addressed, we have documents to support whatever expedition we have incurred in the Lagos State House of Assembly. And if any other person believes contrarily, let them bring their own document. So we will compare document to document. Simple.
All right, so let's get the first reaction. Suleiman says, when you see someone come out openly like this, there must be something behind it. But let's wait and see, Sha. Oba in Lagos politics is not, is it your boy you wanted to say? Is not a pullover.
A pushover.
A pushover politicians.
So Oba is Mudashiru Obasa. Imagine that's who you're referring to. By the way, this reminds me of the Ambode
scenario,
situation. Remember that period?
I remember. Ambode even did a presser.
Second term.
Literally.
And, said a lot of things about then aspirant, eventual candidate, and now governor of Lagos State. This next user, Muftao Olatunbosu, says, I foresee this man being arrested on Monday, which is today, by the way, once he sets foot at Alausa for trying to cause chaos and inciting violence. They should just let it go and be contented with being a floor member. Power is transient. So he said he was going to go back to office. So Monday, which is today, yes, it's going to be an interesting day, certainly.
Okay, maybe we'll jump to the next tweet post now. This is what's coming. It's an offense to refuse entry. Officers entry exit from your house. Is the police authorities? Who said this? Muiwa?
That's from the police.
I don't think it was properly contextualized.
Yeah. So let's just show you what was said. This was from Brighter Duffy of the Delta Police Command. That's it. That wearing a mask as a policeman is a red flag, yes, and it's not allowed in policing. However, we all should stop thinking that it is right to lock the police either outside or inside. That's another offense on its own. That incident can't be defended simply because the policeman wore or were on masks. We're waiting for information to know where it transpired so that proper investigation will be carried out. But why did they say that they're not Yahoo boys? Blah, blah, blah. So this was an incident he was responding to, but basically saying that it's not right.
He's always in the news somehow.
So he was saying that, and I think it was just maybe generalized. He was saying that this incident can't be defended because the policemen were on masks, that it is wrong to lock the police either inside or outside in this case.
In this particular incident.
Yeah.
All right, so context is important. So that's why I don't want to overdwell. We also, okay, do we have more time? I think we're totally out of time.
There's a lot making the rounds,
yes.
but just to also speak to the captain Nuhu, which we had earlier on. You know that there's a controversy, or there was some sort of controversy
surrounding the position.
Yeah, about the NCAA DG. But the truth is, the government has appointed and even confirmed
an acting
NCAA DG. So this just speaks to the particular debate and controversy around that.
Captain
But what
Chris
we know, Najomo. So Captain Chris Najomo has been confirmed as a substantive DG now of the NCAA. So when we spoke to Captain Nuhu earlier on, and he said, well, he remains a DG, it's just testament to his own side. Just as Obasa says that
he's still the speaker.
So everybody has that right to say it, but hey, what does the government say? What does the law say as well? That's another thing entirely.
So we just wanted to put that out as far as the position of the NCAA leadership is concerned between Chris and Nuhu. I hope we've cleared that now. Hey. But we must thank you so much for being part of the program. As always, it's been quite a one throughout the weekend. And now a new week is upon us towards the end of the month of January. A new month will start pretty soon. So thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.
Don't forget, Sunrise Daily is next. Stay with us right here on Channels Television. I can bet you it's going to be an interesting Monday. I'm Coyote Okikilu. Goodbye.